So if we giving money to black people to uplift black people in black communities, then there's a lot of things that's going to be changing. So what happened is this. The president of the organization, the ex-president of the organization, had told us that she was getting death threats to her mansion from white supremacists. She made sure that she told us that on every single staff meeting that we had, like the major ones, twice a year. And, you know, I often thought about it. It was said more casually than alarming, you know. And so the idea that what was stated at the time is that things had gotten so dangerous for her staff that she had to remove her staff's names off of the internet, right? And so the idea that our names wasn't on the internet nor our emails, how is it that I'm getting hacked, right? So one of the white supremacists had tried to pretend to be the president at the time and get me because I was new to buy some play cards with my corporate card. And I almost fell for it. You understand what I'm saying? I almost fell for the whammy. So that was the first thing that had happened with a cyber attack, you know. So here's what happened. I'm going to really speed up because, like I said, I could get into this another time. I just really want y'all to know this. I've been posting a lot of content and stuff like that, and I really want to show my face and let people know what's really going on. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I'm calling on elected officials. I'm mentioning elected officials. Instagram has blocked me from tagging any elected officials, so please repost my stuff. Please tag my stuff because they don't want me speaking out about what's going on to me, what's going on with me, and what's going on. Period. So basically, here's what happened at Borealis. Borealis was the best place that I thought that I could ever be, right? I just came from prison doing all this time. I had done all of these appeals. I even had the Ford Foundation 1-year internship in my pocket. You understand? So the idea that I had just graduated with my criminal justice and human rights degree, you understand, just means that I'm qualified for this type of job, right? So now to have done all the things that I wanted to do coming home, which was go back to school, which was start working, which was to find a career. So now I'm in a career job, right? To where not only am I working in philanthropy, but I'm working in the philanthropy that does not even exist. I'm working in philanthropy where the part of philanthropy that I'm working at is giving money to groups and organizations that's on some real life radical shit, like shutting jails down. You understand what I'm saying? Like bailing the whole jail out to prove I was partially responsible for collecting bail data all across this country. And so what happened is this. During my role, I started to collect all of this data, started to collect all this information. I started building the fund as I was the only employee on the fund at the time. So I started to build the fund. And then for a long time, it was just me and the director. That was the only two people on our fund for a year and a half. Okay. So the both of us had helped to build that fund. And being that we were building the fund, we had to talk to a lot of different organizations as well as a lot of different organizers. And the organizers and organizations that we spoke to were some of the most radical black people on earth, period. You understand what I'm saying? That nobody ain't never asked them if they need funding for anything to help them to progress, right? Because that's what happens is anything you put money behind is gonna progress, right? So this is what it is. So this was a job that I was heavily proud of, you know, and then I was learning a lot about theories that I've had while I was incarcerated when I didn't think I had the intelligence or the confidence to even understand that what was going on in my head was true facts, right? That I also had the ability in my own mind to draw the conclusions of things that wasn't in existence in somebody else's textbook, right? That I could write my own textbook based off of research, experiences, and what's in front of our face. So the idea that all of these men and women, these organizers, these radical organizers who philanthropy never calls on, never has conversations with to give them money for anything, because that's not the way that it works, right? So when I'm learning all of this stuff from them, you learning the raw deal, the real raw deal. And so to learn the real raw deal when you're still like in slave syndrome, right? You understand what I'm saying? I've been indoctrinated with 11 years of prison world. It's like being trapped inside of a picture frame, right? Where you can read all the books that you want. You can write all the papers that you want. You can get smart in that kind of way, but the experience, you ain't got that. Oh, no, you ain't got that experience. I ain't had that experience. I'm learning it for my first time now. You understand? And as I'm taking it all in, traumatizing. And part of the reason why I was traumatizing is I still hadn't, I got over it now, and I'm still getting over it now. But at the time, I did not get over that trauma that Ford had caused. Because it wasn't enough, just to back up a little bit, it wasn't enough that they had given us that third interview that was so bad, it was like a parole board. And it wasn't enough that I wasn't the only person that felt some type of way about it and that we organized to speak out about it, because that's how wrong it was. It happened to the last cohorts from the last year, and we were the second cohorts, as this was a new program at the Ford Foundation for formerly incarcerated people to get this type of job, to gain these type of skills. Beautiful program. It just turns out the person running it has psychological problems. They're white, they're older, and they know how to use that privilege. They also know how to use white supremacy tactics. And what I didn't understand then is that I'm into this place and then I'm being conditioned for something. I don't know that. I'm still a kid. You understand what I'm saying? I came out. I spent every day of my 20s in prison. But when I came out, it's like I'm 20 still. You understand? Because, you don't have experiences in there. The experiences that you have in there is still stagnation. It's not a real life. It's not a real world. It's like animals in a zoo. You could pretty that shit up as much as you want. Those animals are miserable. That's not their habitat. You understand what I'm saying? They just adjust and adapt like humans do. You know what I'm saying? So my whole thing is this. Once it came time that I found out about the no new jails, right? Somebody had sent me an email and was just basically saying, I heard about the Rikers stuff, but I wasn't on Rikers Island, so I never joined that closed Rikers thing. I just feel like the people who have experienced it, they should be at the forefront. So I stayed away from that. Besides, even at that time, I had 5 years on parole. I had just done 11. I already know when you go to these protests, there's a chance you get locked up. If you have any police contact while you're on parole, that's 1 year back to prison automatically. So I ain't want nothing to do with these protests. You understand what I'm saying? My whole 4.5 years on parole, my first 4.5 years on parole, I just wanted to do everything I needed to do to get these people off my back, as well as build back my life better. And that's exactly what I did. It's just so happened that I'm in this freaking radical job, learning all this radical shit and having people say things that I knew that was true, and from their perspective and their experience and from their work. You understand? And then I start getting the data. It's traumatizing. It's too traumatizing to know that this is a setup. It's too traumatizing to know that black people are still looked at as a commodity. And so since we're still looked at as a commodity, we're going to still be treated slave-like. And if we're still treated slave-like, a lot of us are going to still think slave-like. Just like a lot of the men at the Ford Foundation, they was not really willing to stand up and speak out for what was said. That's why I was targeted, the unprotected black woman. Ain't I a woman? I'm a woman. Yeah, I look tough. I act like tougher than a lot of you niggas, but I'm a woman. I classify as a woman all day. You understand what I'm saying? I know I'm harder than a lot of you niggas, and it's 100% fact. But all day I'm a female, bro. You understand what I'm saying? And when men, I hate when men don't take a stance for female, because that means you're just intimidated by me and you feel like you want to act like a nigga. You be like, I could do that too, though. You understand what I'm saying? But I'm still a female. You understand? And the idea that people are not gonna stand, or the idea that people would just stand by and just watch this type of abuse take place is wrong. You understand what I'm saying? And then I'm targeted at the Ford Foundation. That's why I put hashtag William, tell them what you did to me. Because they violate my privacy and invaded my privacy since from there. Because this is what they do. This is what they're a part of. I'm only learning it now. But I understand what happened to me there and how he tried to break me down. And it's something I could speak about further, but I really want to get to this Borealis evil cult. Hashtag Borealis evil cult. Because what y'all did to me was wrong. I didn't ask for none of this. I came home, I went to school, I got a career job, and then I had the nerve to get a job to where it's something I love doing, something that I'm actually, like, it's purposeful for my life, to use my experience and be able to teach people, to be able to advance organizers by what they may not know. You understand? Like, real people know me. And when I'm on those calls, and when I was in those conferences, and when I was at those tables, real people know me. What I've said, what I've done. I've never been a kiss ass. I've never been a sellout. And if you say whatever, say what you want. Show me. Show me. You understand what I'm saying? At the end of the day, you know, what happened is when I met No New Jails, I just got an email saying this is what they're trying to do to the brothers and sisters at Rikers Island when they supposed to be closing it down, and they moving them from this jail, the Brooklyn Detention Center, and sneaking them on the same jail that the mayor already said is going to be closed down, that is already dangerous. So the way, so when we're in prison and we're in jail and we writing our families at home with what's happening to us, that is our only hope that something will change. So when I had the opportunity to now be on the other end, to where I'm fighting for the people inside rather than being inside begging and writing these organizations to help us, and 9 times out of 10 that help never came. I know what that's like. So yeah, I went out there and I stood out there and I made my voice known. I didn't even know how to protest. It's my first protest. You understand what I'm saying? I just hold up a motherfucking sign and chanted some shit that I believed in. We must love and protect one another. You understand what I'm saying? We have nothing to lose but our chains. And we told those people in there that we love them and that they're not forgotten. And that was significant. That shit made their night. It probably made their year. What is the harm in that? It was nonviolent. Nobody was arrested. Okay? And then what happened next? What happened next is that I was already in an organization that was so radical. And I had already learned so many things about them, about the Ford Foundation, and just other philanthropic organizations spoke about the Ford Foundation. So the Ford ain't know that anyway. What they've done to me, I learned that they've done a lot of things to a lot of different people. A lot of different people, a lot of different organizations. They just have the history of fuck shit. You understand what I'm saying? So shit. Not only am I in a radical organization, but I'm in an organization that dislikes the same people that done me harm. But still they fund them by 75%. And still this is my job. And still they're the ones who's holding $14 billion, one of 3 of the most richest in the world. So, you know, at the end of the day, we got to be bigger people. Right? So I wanted to be a bigger person. And imagine this. Imagine that I was at the Ford Foundation to where I've done the best that I could do, coming from where I came from. You understand what I'm saying? And then still being harmed by this human resource director, this racist human resource director. If he's not racist, he's a part of white supremacy. It probably means the same thing. You understand what I'm saying? Because sometimes I don't believe it's always racism. Sometimes I just think it's the power and control you have because of what comes from racism. It sounds weird, but hey, that's another conversation. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, to not only endure the harm, the silent harm that was done to me, but to still excel anyway. You know what I'm saying? To be in an environment where when I first got there, I was intimidated because I just came from prison not too long ago. And so the way that you socialize in prison is different from the way people socialize out here. And then I'm in a place with millionaires and billionaires. So that was a culture shock as well. But still, I made the adjustment. I had problems socializing. They have a staff of 350. One of my goals when I was there was to mingle and talk to at least 100 people. And I talked to 150, maybe more. That we've sat for half an hour conversation. So there's a lot of people that work there that really respect me. You understand? And they know what I have to say is true. And it's just because of whatever was done, whatever William have done. You know, I don't know what he's done. But I know the more he did and the more that I spoke out about it, the more I started to experience different things. Like just coming to work one day after spending my first I had a 1-year internship. That's 12 months. So imagine my first 9.5 months. I'm getting along with everybody. I'm doing all the things that I need to do. I'm excelling on my own, and I'm learning so many different new skills because they got so much money to invest. And I was making sure that they was spending it. You understand what I'm saying? And they didn't care. They got $14 billion. So the idea that I took advantage of this opportunity to help me to advance in my life. And because I don't bow down to nobody, because I continue to challenge the way that we was talked down to in there and talked act. You understand what I'm saying? Because somebody thinks that you're a criminal, so they think they're going to talk to you and treat you like a criminal. And if you allow that shit, guess what? You just co-signed it. No, not me. You understand what I'm saying? No. You're not going to talk to me like that. So I began to flip it on him. And then it became more and more stuff for me. So after 9.5 months of doing that back and forth thing with him, like I said, I get into all this another time. I'm trying to really go fast. You understand what I'm saying? So what happened is, after 9.5 months, I just come to work one day. After I wrote this email about him to the BAR Prison Initiative Reentry Program Director. Yeah, after I wrote that long 2-3 page email about what he has done and what they were doing to me, all of a sudden I'm blackballed and outcast, right? At the time, I was working on so many different projects with so many different departments. Now I'm not working on no projects with no departments. Nobody's sending me emails no more. People not even saying hello when they see me. It's like I'm not even in. You know, usually you'd be like, hey, good morning, good morning. And everybody's like, hey, good morning, good morning. Now I'm like, come in like, hey, good morning, good morning. And people like I was completely invisible. For 2.5 months, my last 2.5 motherfucking months, I spent it there in silence, working with nobody. Nobody wanted to work me. Took me off for all my projects. Nobody even wanted to say good morning to me. You understand what I'm saying? And guess what? I ain't give a fuck. You understand? That shit hurt. That shit is psychologically fucks with you. But at the end of the day, I knew that I only had 2.5 more months. And I knew that I was going to continue to build on the skills that I was gaining. And that was my only goal, my only mission. And I've done that. I completed that. And you'd be happy to know that on my last day, that same human resource director asked me to stay behind after our little table talk. Twice a month, we'll have lunch together with these people and have nice little table talks. Okay? And on the last table talk, he asked me to stay behind. And when he asked me to stay behind, you know what he told me? He told me that he know that I'm going to excel in life. Yeah, I knew that too. But you know what else he told me? He said, you never wavered, and you never will. I never wavered, and I never will. And that whole time I spent not understanding nothing of what's being done to me until that motherfucker said those words, right? So it was clear and apparent that he was trying to break me down. And it was clear and apparent that by the time I got to Borealis 6 months later, took me 6 months, five months. Took me 5 months after leaving that internship that's supposed to set you up for a job. It took me 5 months to get a job in which I've got on my own. The thing is, this job, Borealis, was referred to me by a colleague at Ford, but that colleague was formerly incarcerated. You understand what I'm saying? I didn't understand at the time that these formerly incarcerated people served a different kind of purpose and that they were used to confuse people like me, because guess what? I trusted him. It could have been anybody else there would have forwarded this opportunity to me. I wouldn't have took it. I wouldn't have bought into it. But it's my own formerly incarcerated person. It's our own formerly incarcerated people that they get to dupe us. You understand what I'm saying? So I felt for it at the time. And like I said, it was all good because I was doing the work. I was excelling. I was happy. I was content. I didn't know this shit was fake. You understand what I'm saying? It became fake because it's like I just decided to take a stance now against the Ford Foundation, right? And so the organizers was protesting outside the Ford Foundation, but it was more so Angela Davis. I love Angela Davis. I took a number of pictures. I got a chance to meet her on a number of occasions. Who does not love Angela Davis? So when Angela Davis decided that it was not right of the Ford Foundation to fund progressive work at the same time co-signing these new $11 billion jails in New York City, you know, I was all in my emotions of what I was experiencing, just about to be released off of parole after being freaking oppressed for so long and on these invisible chains for so long, and then learning out the truth and then actually meeting a group that was willing to step to these people. You know, so that's what was going on with me. So I was riding off of the momentum. And besides that, I feel like, you know, the Ford Foundation, like I told y'all, I felt like I was going to be the bigger person, and being that they had funded the organization by 75%, as well as, you know, I had to work with them still, some of them. I had went back to the Ford Foundation to build relationships, not with the human resource director, no, but with other people, you know, just because I understood like this is a career job and I have to, there's some things you're going to like and some things you're not going to like about your job, but you just got to deal with it in the best way, you know, what they call it, being diplomatic. That shit don't work for me. That shit don't work for me. Just telling the honest truth, just being real, that shit works for me. Because if you sit here and play all this diplomatic shit, it just doesn't work. Because they finger fuck you anyway. You understand what I'm saying? And the idea that I went there and started to rebuild relationships, there was a lot of people that was happy to see me. A lot of people I was also happy to see that didn't have nothing to do with none of this and don't even know nothing about none of this. You know, but after that, just 2 weeks later, I went and protested on their compound. Just 2 weeks after going over there. You know why? Because once again, Angela Davis spoke. And she said we should do a demonstration there. You understand what I'm saying? Because the Ford Foundation, y'all have a lot to answer to the people, and you should. All right? And Darren Walker, the same thing. You took a selfie with me and my wife. We was taking pictures like it was the best night at that Harvard Club. It was all good when I'm very compliant and I'm seeming as if I can be used in a certain way that I didn't sign up for. And the minute that I go and I speak out against the evil that's being done to me, the minute that I speak up for myself or want it to even stop, I'm being targeted. I'm being outcast. I'm being blackballed. I'm being lied on. You understand what I'm saying? Y'all think I'm just supposed to take that and eat that. And for a long time, all I did was suffer with it. But I knew one day I would be right where I am today, coming right back for you motherfuckers. And outing you motherfuckers of what y'all have done. Y'all owe me an apology. And you owe me more than that. You understand what I'm saying? So now the idea that after that protest, I thought it wasn't enough to just go to Ford Foundation and hold up a sign. So I spoke out. And I wanted to educate them. I could have told them there what the harm that was done. I could have spoke about the harm that was being done to me there. Oh, no. I didn't use that time and that space for that. Instead, I used it to speak out for these women who are being raped, who are being raped in these jails and these prisons. What women experience is different from men and is not being talked about. And it needs to be talked about, not by these puppet activists, but by the people that's not afraid to speak about it, that have done the work on their trauma to be able to talk about it, so that the women can get the help that they need, as well as this shit can stop. That's the only goal and the only mission. You know, so the idea that Bayview was the nicer prison, if I felt that Ford Foundation, they had the idea that they bought into these new jails because they think that they can invest it differently to be nice. Well, yeah, I did think that they think that. Now I don't believe that shit. I know they know that shit is bullshit. I don't know what else they got planned, man. But all I know is it's going to be people like me going in there, my kids, my sons, my daughters. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, I plan on having kids still. Yes, I am going to have kids one day. And we all have kids already that have brown, beautiful, black skin like us. And we just being targeted still. For what? And we're going to be filling up these jails. So why? Why not speak out about it? I have my First Amendment right. I didn't lose that. You never lose that. As a felon, as a parolee, you do not lose certain of your constitutional rights, if not none of them. You understand what I'm saying? You don't lose that. That's all we have. And the idea that these people wanted to silence me, you know, and all I wanted to do was educate them and teach them about what the system is about, because I thought that's what they cared about. I didn't know this was bullshit. If I knew this was bullshit, I would have sat my ass there collecting my checks and just stayed the fuck out of parole's way. I'd have just done what I wanted to do. You understand? I'm sitting here taking a risk to be arrested while I'm on my last months of fucking parole. That could get me a whole nother year in there. And I didn't care, because guess what? Somebody needed to stand up against these punk ass motherfuckers. Because they think they could just use their $14 billion and sit here and buy people off. You know what I'm saying? And continue to cause people like me harm. I'm tired of that shit. I'm sick of it. We're sick of it. Because it ain't just me, motherfuckers. It's people that look like me. People that have the stance like me. People who ain't taking no bullshit like me. People who refuse to assimilate. You understand what I'm saying? Like, come on now. We can never be like you motherfuckers, and you motherfuckers know that shit. And nor do we want to be. You know? So the idea that after that protest at the Ford Foundation, I went to the New York City Council building. I don't even know what the place is. I don't know nothing about this shit. All I know is that what I've experienced in prison and what the women have experienced in prison is wrong. And all I know is that everything that I've learned from all of those organizers across this country that's really making that real sacrifice, man, that they've educated me in a way that I needed to be educated. In a way we all need to be educated so that we can understand the circumstances in which black people are in America. And it's even worse than I thought. Look at what they doing to me, man. So I did the testimony, right? And after I did the testimony and I spoke out about and relived all that stuff, man, when they didn't do nothing about that, when they didn't care about those women I spoke about was getting raped, when they didn't care about that girl who was in the mental health and got killed, you understand what I'm saying? When they didn't care nothing about that, that's what traumatized me. I don't even think it was more so telling the story. I think telling the story empowered me. But the fact that nothing happened after that put me in significant danger. You know, and so I needed to take time off of work. Because not only did it put me in significant danger, I tried to explained to the president at the time what I was doing. You know, the vice president who I was cool with, the vice president of programs, we were cool at the time. And, you know, he had spoken to the president for me in order for me to advocate for funding for no new jails. Because I explained to them that people like the Ford Foundation at these meetings and big conferences that I would go to, that they were going around the table to other funders telling them, do not fund no new jails. They don't know what they talking about, this, and that. And so y'all have to understand one thing. Reputation is everything. You know, so when these foundations talk bad about people like me, when they talk bad about organizations like the No New Jails, other funders listen. Because most foundations and other organizations get money from the Ford Foundation. They're one of 3 of the richest foundations in the world. So they want their money. You know what I'm saying? So they're not going to fund No New Jails. And I just thought that that was wrong. So I thought we should fund them, being that we stood for something that was different from the rest of philanthropy. All right. But at the same time I was advocating for funding for them, I was going through a lot of stuff I didn't understand. So Borealis had just recently, around the time of my testimony, around the time of my protest. My testimony was October of 2019. My protest was September of 2019. Up until September, okay, because a lot of this started to traumatize me to the point that up until September, they had just hired a human resource director. This black woman was new. So Borealis Philanthropy, 85% of their staff is black women, people of color, transgenders, people who are immigrants, and also people who have disabilities as well as ex-felons like myself. You know what I'm saying? So this is the classification of like this is a radical group. Like their employees make up the people that they serve. You know, and that's how it should be. The problem here is that there was corruption that had taken place, right? And I had shared my case for the first time at Borealis Philanthropy. And when I shared my case for the first time at Borealis Philanthropy, it became an interesting case. The vice president of programs had offered to help me to get legal help because I'm like, yo, I'm still on parole. I have to travel. And like, this is just, it's burdensome, you know, because I have to ask for permission every time we go to travel for work. They got to know where I'm at and, you know, all of this other psychological stuff that comes with that. So I want to help, as well as I shouldn't be on parole anyway. So I started sharing details of my case with him. And he had offered to help me. And the help never came. Instead, more trauma came. And then I was referred to by the vice president to see a therapist that he previously saw. So because I trusted him, I wanted to see the therapist. Somebody told me that I shouldn't have done that, but I didn't. I was thinking like a kid still. And I don't even want to say a kid. Just thinking how, you know, you should think. If he's having sessions with, if the therapist having sessions with him and she don't see him no more and she's having sessions with me now, they're not supposed to tell people what's in the session. That's just how I thought. Right, exactly. And so, you know, I started seeing her. But then I started seeing her. And then I'm like, you know, I started seeing her in like August of 2019, right before my testimony. Then I didn't want to see her no more. After my testimony and stuff, I started making music. They had just hired the human resource director. Right? They just hired this bitch. And so she was all into my music. She started funding my music. She started funding my studio sessions. She started telling me to make more videos. You know what I'm saying? When I started doing my power and leadership. So they were like basically funding my power and leadership movement. You understand what I'm saying? And I had told them I didn't want to see a therapist no more because going to the studio was therapy for me. So they started paying for studio sessions, right? All right. So what happens is at the time between October and February, I was on vacation. October, November, December, January, February, 4 months, right? I believe I took 8 months off of vacation from October. After that, I couldn't, right? I needed vacation. So I took like 8 weeks off. After taking 8 weeks off, they have unlimited time. This is philanthropy. So hello, somebody. In this sector, they have unlimited time off, okay? And so I took 8 weeks off. After October, November, December, I was going to be off of parole in February, and I was experiencing a lot of stuff, right? So now, after that, after I took 8 weeks off, I was going to trainings. So the human resource director, I'm not knowing that her being on my phone, especially my private line, she insisted I give her my private number. So she's calling me on my private line, talking to me, asking me all of these questions about rap, when did I start, all of this stuff. Like, she was acting like a fan. And she was sharing my work. You understand what I'm saying? She'd be sharing my work on the work platforms. So it's like there was no reason to believe she wasn't a big fan. Plus, she was funding it. And she's black. So I'm like dumb all the way through, because I'm like not even dumb, not dumb, still like a kid. In the way that you don't really think that these people are corrupt, that these people are criminals. You understand what I'm saying? That these people are assigned to do something and you have no freaking clue. And when she sent me to a training as I was experiencing heavy loads of trauma, and she had her LSMW, her licensed social work master's degree, in which she used during my time of trauma to ask me a series of questions, digging deep about my pain, about my traumas in prison and how I got through this and how I got through that. You understand what I'm saying? And so she sends me to a training and tells me that this training is for black women like myself, because us black women, we go through something significant in this country, right? Something very unique, which is true. Black men too. You understand what I'm saying? But it's true. And so if I'm going to go to some type of training that maybe perhaps will help me build on or identify something that I don't know that I could work on and fix, obviously that is the goal, to move past this state of trauma. And the idea that this job and these people on the job is spending so much money and investing in me, wow. I just felt so special, and I really am. You understand what I'm saying? So this training that's supposed to be for black women, to uplift black women, turns out it wasn't to uplift black women. This was a training that was masked as a training for work, and it was a satanic cult training. How do I know that? So when I get to this training, first of all, the human resource director told me that she was going to be there with me. All right. And that she told me that one of her friends told her about this training, and that she said that they can't tell you nothing about it. You find out when you get there. So it sounded a little weird, but it's my human resource director. And after I've already taken 8 weeks off of work from being traumatized, I want them to know that I'm willing to do what I need to do to continue my job. Like, I can do my job. It's just that my personal experience and my job is so much in relation that it did trauma me. And I just did all these protests and testimony that kicked up trauma. So helping me to repair it was a beautiful thing. So I thought. 3-day training. Friday, it take place on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and on Tuesday. So I'm in Manhattan renting a hotel room for 3 days so that I could be able to complete this training. This training that's held at night. Not during 9 to 5 business hours, but that's held at night from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock. You understand what I'm saying? Then you get to this training. As soon as I get to this training in Manhattan, big building. So I'm walking down the block, about to go to this training. There's this man on the phone. Yo, mad obnoxious. Standing outside the building that I'm supposed to go into, like, yeah, this shit is like some satanic cult training, but I'm only going because so-and-so told me to go in. And I was just like, I just heard it in passing. So the guy on the phone was saying that this training that he was about to go to was a satanic cult training. And so in my mind, I'm like, I heard it, but I just like brushed it off because I'm like, nah, this is not where I'm going. You feel me? So now I go on the elevator and I notice there's like 30 something floors, right? I don't know what floors I was on. I don't remember. I don't remember. One of the top floors. I get to the top floor. When I get into this place, you had to fill out an application. On this application, they're asking you questions about what brings you here. And it's multiple choice questions. And inside the multiple choice question, they have things like a death of a family member. You were raped. You lost your child. You're gay and your father don't accept you. Like, there was just a lot of weird stuff written on, like, but it was all multiple choice questions based off of the worst things in life that can happen to you. And the craziest part of this story is that they had a whole bunch of options, but being formally freaking incarcerated wasn't one. You understand what I'm saying? And dealing with it. So here we go again. This is invisible, that people don't understand what we go through after coming home from prison. You know, and the people and the social workers that do, they won't tell it because they're going to continue to monetize off of our pain and make sure that they have jobs for the next 5-10 years. That's besides the point. So now, get to this training, fill out this application that's crazy, asking crazy personal information. I fabricated a lot of information because when people start asking them too personal questions, it's just in my mind like, who is this going to? And like, why would I have to tell all of this about myself before even knowing you? Like, you gotta build a relationship first, at least. You understand? So now, I go into this training. That guy that was outside talking about that satanic cult training, that this was a satanic cult training, oh, he was sitting right in there with me. And I made eye contact with him like a motherfucker because I said, wait a minute. Because the way that this training was going was crazy. I could talk about that another day. You understand what I'm saying? I need y'all to understand this. This training, in order to complete it, this night was like an orientation. In order to complete this training, you had to promise that you would not say anything or tell anybody about what this training was about. I'm gonna get into what this day was. I get into this training, all right. And when I get in there, the first thing that I noticed, it's not black women in there. There were black women in there, but there were white women in there. There were white men in there. There were black men in there. There were people there that did not look like they were any kind of professionals, if you understand what I'm saying. So like, for instance, so I get off the elevator, there's a room that's like a reception room. That's where you go, you fill out the application and what I told you they asking is a table and there's 2 people sitting there. Then there's a room with these big brass doors. You understand what I'm saying? And when you open the doors and go through the doors, it's a whole big room. It looked like a church service. It's set up like any church that you know, not too big of a church, the small ones, but it's a nice size space. For instance, probably had about 150 people in the room. It probably had about 150 people in the room that night. Hold on. Make sure I'm looking at the camera. Yeah, it probably had about 150 people in the room. So the same way that the seats are set up in church where it's rows and aisles, that's the same way that it was set up. So there was about 1, 2, 3, 4. There was about 20 or 25 rows going from front to back. And then there were 2 aisles, right? And then there's a row of seats on this side. There's one big row of seats on this side, and then there's a little slim row of seats on the third side. So there's 2 aisles and there's 3 rows of seats that could probably fit about 150 individuals. And on this night, it was approximately 100 to 150 individuals here. All right. There were not only professionals, there were homeless people that clearly smelt and looked like they were spending time on the street. There were people who clearly looked like they were hitting heavy drugs. Okay. So now there's a black woman facilitating, and she's telling us all about it. They started off with testimonials. Okay. And they had a whole bunch of black people, Spanish people, not really much white people. Most of the white people were in the audience, right? So they had them doing testimonials, right? So there was about 8 men and women who had came up to speak to the fact that they have done this program before. And they were letting us know that the problems they had before the training, before the 3-day training, they no longer had after the 3-day training. It just magically disappeared. So people who had problems with public speaking, like most of us, after that 3-day training, they ain't having no more. People who had, like, for instance, a homosexual man whose father disowned him his whole life. After this 3-day training, he had built a better relationship with his father. Wives who had left them or who had gotten divorced couldn't find love in 10 years, 15 years, and finding love after this training. People who've only had a job paying $45,000 could never get a job or a role paying more than $50,000 after this training. They getting $100,000, $150,000, 6 figures. Ooh. People who were aspiring musicians and artists who had never gotten the opportunities before this training. After this 3-day training, they've getting all the opportunities that they want. And by the way, they're all great public speakers that gave their testimonials. So, to be honest, as a person who is, I think I do decent public speaking now. Some people might say I'm good at it. They've been saying that even when I didn't think so. So, for me, it's just, I just know that I didn't always have the confidence to be in front of the camera. And I really don't like being in front of it now. But I have a message and I have something important to say as well as my life is in danger because they don't want you to know none of this. You understand what I'm saying? This is a whole point of why I'm going through what I'm going through. I thought it was for all the radical work. Nah, it's because I got away from this satanic cult training and had the nerve to fucking talk about it. But even after, okay, so So what happens now is this. As a public person who have worked so hard to do public speaking, the first thing that I had noticed is that all of these people who had came up to do the testimonials are excellent public speakers, right? Fine, whatever. They were all dressed weird, okay? You know how them people come into America with Eddie Murphy look? And they be having all them, like, it kind of look militant, but it kind of look, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's like some old school type of army soldier wear. It's like coming to America wear, where they got those things on their shoulders and shit, those brushes or whatever the hell that is, and they got the gold buttons and the freaking I don't know, like Navy outfits. I don't freaking know, some militant shit, but some weird shit rather. You understand? Because it ain't militant at all, but they were organized and they were strategic. And I will say this: during the beginning, they told everybody to mingle and tell each other what their problems is. You understand what I'm saying? I'm saying to myself, at the time, I wasn't comfortable speaking about what was going on with me because I'm still discovering it. And I'm just feeling like there's something crazy I'm experiencing from being formerly incarcerated, right? But I didn't feel like talking about it with people that's not formerly incarcerated. So I went to the bathroom because I did have to take a shit. I had to take a number 2, okay? So I went to the bathroom to take another 2. This is about to get a little bit TMI, but y'all need to know, when I went to the bathroom, this lady grabbed me. One of the ones that had done the testimonials that was dressed all weird and shit. She grabbed me. So I was like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Like I had got her hand off me. And then she's like, oh, where you going? So I was like, yo, I'm going to the bathroom. So she's like, all right, you could go. Oh, okay. I didn't know I needed permission. So whatever. So I went to the bathroom, right? Go to the bathroom, taking a shit. I can't. It's constipated, okay? So I'm constipated on the toilet. I'm in there about 5 minutes. I told you it's a little bit personal, but hold on a second. So now 5 minutes later, the lady comes in and asks me if I'm all right. So I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. She was like, do you need anything? So then I'm like, okay, when somebody asks you, do you need something? Yes, let me tell her I do. If you don't mind, can you get me some water? Right? Maybe that'll help, you know? She got me a bottle of water. Start drinking the water. Still, whatever. I'm able to move my bowels now. I'm literally just about to get off the toilet. 5 minutes later, again, she's knocking on the door to check on me. Like I'm in the bathroom. You understand what I'm saying? You really was just in. Okay, so she comes check on me. So I'm like, yo, I'm going to be out in a second. It rubbed me the wrong way. So I wash my hands. I go back in there. And now they asking people, they basically talking, but they ain't talking about nothing because they keep telling us that we have to do the program first. They're not telling us about it. And then when we do it, we can't tell nobody. So what that man was saying out there about satanic cult, this shit already not sounding right and it ain't looking right. You understand what I'm saying? So I have to take in what he's saying to imagine that it's a possibility that something's not right. But again, this is from my job, so I'm not going to think that at the same time. So now what happened is they started asking people who wants to change their life, right? Who's willing to do the work that they need to do to change their life so that they could get past this traumatic point, whatever. Everybody stand. So everybody stood. We all stood. Yeah, who don't want to change their life? That was warm up 1. Now they ask the question, this training is 3 days, these are the hours, it's held at night, blah, 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 and that you can't tell nobody. Everybody stand up if you agree that when you're finished this training, you're not going to tell nobody about it. We all stood up. And as we all stood up, those people who were doing the testimonials started walking through the aisles like soldiers. Boom, 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 boom. And just looking to make sure everybody was standing up and it wasn't nobody sitting down. That's when it became a little bit weird for me because it felt very intimidating. You understand what I'm saying? So now she told everybody to sit down, the facilitator. Then she asked another question. She told us what the hours was going to be and asked if we are all going to participate. Please stand. I knew I wasn't going to participate, but I was not going to be nobody motherfucking fool and be sitting there like some sore thumb standing out, still sitting there. I already felt the danger. You understand? It's not only what's happening, it's the danger that you feel. The energy in the room is very thick. and dark. And I wanted no fucking parts of some shit that I don't know what the hell is going to be about. Okay? That was enough for me. So now, we all stood up, except for 2 people. One of them was the guy who was talking about this is a satanic cult training. And the other one is a woman who felt that she had already done the work on herself. And maybe she could benefit from a part 2. Right? So now they're 2 sitting down. The testimonials come storming down the aisle looking, making sure everybody's standing up. And the ones who wasn't standing up, they stood over them. Like this. Standing over them. Now, what happened when they stood over them? The facilitator came to the people they were standing up. And they told them to stand up. And told everybody else to sit down. Why you don't want to do this program? Why? So now they got to explain themselves why they feel that they don't want to do the program. So now this lady is basically saying to her that I heard y'all had a part 2. And from what it sounds like, I think I've done the work that I needed to do on myself. But I feel like I could benefit from the part 2 because I'm not all, like, my trauma is not all out. However she said it, right? So they told her no. Facilitator told her no. You don't do part 1. You don't do part 2. That's not the way it works. So then she's like, all right, then I won't do it at all. You know, but it just became like she started to grill her and ask her questions. And then the way that the lady had to defend herself. And the lady, she looked homeless. She looked dirty. She looked like, no offense to her, but this is the stage that she was at. This is where she was. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like sometimes when people look like that, it's easy for somebody who don't look like that and do have their shit together to talk down to them. And that's what was happening there. And that shit was making me uncomfortable. But then the lady spoke up for herself, you know? And she was like, yo, how is this a program to help people out? But look at how you talking to me. Embarrassing me like this, you know? And so the facilitator had gotten softer because now she's put on blast for everybody else to say, yeah, what type of fucking program is this? Right? She moved on from that lady. She went to the guy. And the guy that already said that this shit was like some satanic cult and already is showing to be something out of the fucking ordinary. Very cult-like to me. You understand what I'm saying? And he's basically saying that he's not doing it because he have a heart problem. And in my mind, I'm like, nigga, say that shit you was saying outside. He ain't stupid. He ain't saying none of that. But he looked her dead in the eye. He said, but I know what you're doing. You're trying to help people. He said it just like that. You're trying to help people. And when I seen that, I said to myself, oh, hell no. I don't want no parts of none of this. You understand what I'm saying? He'll allow her to fucking send everybody else off to the fucking races while he get to skip out knowing damn well what this is about. And so what happened is, after that, they told us to go on a break, lunch break, dinner break. It was like 7, 8, 9 o'clock or whatever. So we went to dinner break. After that dinner break, I went right back to my hotel room. I texted my director. I told her what happened. I called her. The type of relationship we had, I could call her at night. She'd talk to me, and she did. And she didn't like what she heard. She asked me to write that up in an email about the human resource director. You understand what I'm saying? And I wrote it, and I didn't even write it in a way that I'm saying it now because I felt like I don't feel like the lady knew. I didn't feel like she knew about it, but she sure asked me about it. She grilled me about it, and she even told me that we should tell them what happened. We should tell them what happened to you. And I'm saying to myself, like, I don't really mind I don't mind you giving them my name that I had this problem or that I'm feeling this type of way. But I'm like, but what would the name be? It's the behavior. It's not the name to be addressed. It's the behavior. But she was so insisting that she give the name. And it's like me, if I say it once, I say it twice. So I don't care, give the name. But then my director is like, but why would you give her name? You understand what I'm saying? So it became like that type of thing. But even up until then, I didn't know. I didn't know none of this. I just came to this realization after my Power and Leadership 2 when I saw inside of these demonic accounts that were attacking me, where I saw all the things that I spoke about in therapy in there. I didn't talk about this nowhere else with nobody else. And who else would be attacking me? And I'm saying to myself, that was a satanic cult training. And there's a lot of other things that had taken place after that draw me to that conclusion. But look at who's attacking me now. The satanic cult. When I reported them, because after that what happened is they started illegally surveilling and monitoring me. And I didn't know I was being illegally surveilled and monitored. There's been some things that I had ideas about, but I couldn't put two and two together because I didn't have the life experiences to know what this shit is, you know? And so, for a long story short, man, I'm telling y'all, there's a lot of stuff going on, man. You know, because once I have reported this human resource director, who I didn't know she sent me to a satanic cult, like, imagine that shit, man. I still was trusting these people because I was going through so much fucking shit. I was experiencing high levels of trauma. I needed support. And at the time, I was naive. I'm not going to think that this radical organization and these black people are going to spend all of this money to help me, and it's not to help at all. Why would I know that? That's possible. How should you know that your fucking therapist worships the devil? And is recording and taking everything that you're saying to use against you to break you down? How am I supposed to know this? I didn't even know my own powers at the time. Their level of fear is making me feel powerful. It's making me understand that, you're not average, nigga. I'm thinking I'm still average. The shit that I've done, I didn't know it was so brazen. I didn't know half of this because I was not in society. And by the time I came to society, I was going to school full time. I'm doing my work full time. I'm still trying to have a relationship part time, and then I gotta go to sleep. So I don't know nothing about this stuff. I had the most life experiences when I went to Borealis because I was traveling to different states. You get to see different things. You know what I'm saying? And then they don't have a budget. They're giving out budgets. So you're swiping your card. You're doing what you want to do, like living life. But I wasn't stupid. You understand? I ain't that stupid. You understand what I'm saying? I wasn't that naive. I wasn't that vulnerable. And I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. No traveling, no spending this, spending that. I'm a street nigga. You understand what I'm saying? That means that I changed my life, yes, but I know what it's like to not have nothing. I know what it's like to just have time and friendship and family and love and not all this other stuff. Especially when you're incarcerated, you don't have money. So I lived a long time without money and have had more happiness without it than I have with it. You understand what I'm saying? There's something dark that had taken place. These people tried to set me up. They tried to initiate me into something. They tried to sacrifice me into something that I knew nothing about. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not a part of none of that shit. I'm not with none of that shit. I worship God and God only. You understand what I'm saying? So the idea that they tried to trick me into some training, and I only partially knew that it was a cult. I didn't know it was. Still, even with what I saw and what I believed, what the guy said, it's still like I repeated it, what was said, because that was said. But the idea of it actually being a cult, really? Like, my human resource director? Nah, I wouldn't think that, right? Why would they do that? It's not possible, and they black too? Yeah, that was my thinking. Until they started hiring all these breathwork coach, healing coach, therapists. I stopped seeing the first therapist. They hired me another one. Because again, I had gotten traumatized. What I didn't realize is that these people were hired not to get me out of trauma. They were hired to keep me in a state of trauma. Yo, it's wicked. You understand what I'm saying? It's wicked. The other part that I just want to touch back on, Mrs. Donna. You understand what I'm saying? Who, while I was experiencing all this evil stuff after they had wrongly fired me, she was acting as if she was going to provide me with support and reach out to the people, other organizers who can raise awareness to my situation. You understand what I'm saying? Infiltrated my movement. She vouched for fake accounts. These correctional officers who pretended to be us, she vouched for them that they were real. You understand what I'm saying? As well as she pretended to help me. Sent her emails about the situation. She sent me messages back that she would help. Never helped. Never helped because she's a part of this. You know? And the idea that I have had nothing but respect for this woman. Like I said, it's not easy to go through what she went through, man. And then speak to these funders to try to get money, or speak to people just so they can understand that we're not criminals and that there's things that lead us up to do the crimes that we've done. You know what I'm saying? I saluted that all day. So I had a high respectful level for her. And it would have been dope if we could have teamed up. But the idea that I didn't understand that me going against the new jails and the fact that she had vouched for the new jails. And so what? We talked about it. You understand what I'm saying? We talked about, okay, you was for it, I was against it. We talked about why. And I thought it was cool because I don't have a problem disagreeing with somebody. You understand what I'm saying? Or somebody challenging the way that I think. I would prefer that. That's how we grow. But, you know, I also like to challenge the way other people think and to help them grow as well. You know, and I like to remind us that we shouldn't forget where we came from, because there's always a way that we could go right back there, you know, especially when your skin is black and brown. It's a high possibility. So the idea that I would advocate for funding for her, because she wasn't getting that much funding, because they don't like to give us funding. and basically Borealis would be the philanthropic organization that I was aware of and I worked for, you know, that I could have got her funding, even if it was just 10 grand. I didn't care what it was. Something could have helped, because I know that her organization is one of the only organizations that's trying to look back, not trying to, but that is looking back to the women in Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, which is a maximum correctional facility for women, you know, and they're not animals. They're still human beings, and they deserve to be heard, and the abuse that's going on in there deserves to be stopped. You know, so yeah, I saluted her in the role that I had. If you could, you're supposed to maximize yourself in that role for us. And that's all I ever wanted to do. And so the idea that I had also advocated for funding for her, and they denied her funding, right? Because you have to fit the criteria. It's not just that they denied her funding. She didn't fit the criteria of bail reform. She didn't provide enough information, and I advocated for her as much as possible. It's only one of two things that's going to happen. They're either going to give it to her or not. At the end of the day, I don't have all the decision making on that money, clearly, but I had enough to be able to refer people, and that's what I did. So the idea that they denied her funding for her organization, but then I find out 8 months later, after I was wrongfully terminated, that they were funding her. And if they weren't funding her, they probably funded her now, but at the time, they had brought her back to the table for funding. This is before she infiltrated my movement. This is before she vouched for these fake accounts. Because this is at the time where I just started to gain my strength back, coming out of that 9 months of isolation of what Borealis has done. And now I want to be able to speak about not only what was done to me, but what I was planning on doing with my power and leadership movement, which was my power and leadership movement was to create my power and leadership movement was to recruit women, formerly incarcerated women, so that we can share resources, have spaces, whether private or public, to be able to speak about what's going on or what had happened to us either during prison or after prison, because these are major topics in the criminal justice field, right? Where there's barriers to success. There's barriers to success. Where not only is there barriers to success for people coming home, but there's also something happening to women more than it's happening to men today, which is that within the last 20 years, women have went into this criminal system at an 800% increase in just the last 20 years. And so people like the Ford Foundation and other big organizations, they want answers for why that is so that they can fix it, you know? So again, I've just been in a lot of these spaces. I've done what anybody in my space is supposed to do, which is to take that pain, turn it into power, and help empower others so that change can happen. It makes it better for society, you know? But it's like, if you don't do what these people say, if you don't talk how they want you to talk, if you go on tables, say what you think you're gonna say, it's like, it's just a silent code of like, you don't even know you being wrong, because you're not wrong. You know what I'm saying? But they're watching you. I don't know, man. I can't explain half of this shit. All I know is that there's people out there that worship the devil. I reported crimes against me. The crimes that I reported against me was illegal surveillance and monitoring, as well as I reported the fake therapists that they hired from Puerto Rico, that they're trying to cast spells on me. They've been performing some type of stuff on me. I've been saying my prayers. I've been having people that I know that really loves me praying righteously over me. I'm not sure what else to do, because they're continuing to send me all of this demonic stuff. They've stolen my comb out my car with my hair on it, as well as my insurance card. They've done a lot of stuff, man. And I'm gonna have to get into this on a part 2. Because again, I don't want to work myself up too much up talking about this, because I'm still working on my own healing process. But I just need y'all to understand that there's people out there that's working against me that y'all would think is good because they're out here, quote unquote, doing the work. They're not really doing the work. A lot of people are being used, you know, and it kind of confused me, because I'm saying to myself, like, you know, the only reason why I had reached out to my son and them is because they're the ones out there. They have their organization, Until Freedom. They get funding. You understand? They get funding from the people. They get funding from philanthropy. And so they're supposed to serve the people. They're supposed to work the people. So my thing is, if you going out there and you screaming, oh, protect black women, but then I'm reaching out to you telling you I'm receiving death threats. I'm sending you money saying unprotected black women. All I expect is a conversation to be had, maybe awareness be raised, maybe you share my stuff, or maybe you refer me to an organization or to an attorney that you know of. That was my only thing. It's not like nobody can save my life. Only I can save my life. You understand? But the idea of how all of this is set up, and from me being in philanthropy and knowing how they play activists against each other, you know, and to know that there's people like Donna, who I thought was jealous of me at the time, but didn't realize that she's a part of this satanic cult where they pray. I don't know. They listen, man. Don't get me to telling you what these people do. You understand what I'm saying? But we know it ain't no good. And the things that they've been doing to me hasn't been any good. And the idea that my sister just dies on June 26th. So Tamia. So what happened is, during these sessions, this human resource director from Borealis, during my time of trauma, would be asking me a series of questions about my personal life. And if you know anybody who's experiencing trauma or who's vulnerable in it, you're easily manipulated and taken advantage of. So in the same way that if that was to happen today, it wouldn't be able to happen, that was a different time for me. I'm just coming home from prison. I don't understand a lot about a lot. And then I'm being traumatized. And then I'm having trust not only for the organization, this radical organization that I loved at the time. You understand what I'm saying? Because of everything they stood for. You understand? But that a black woman would just be recently hired as a human resource director in a high rank, be sharing my rhymes, be acting like she's my biggest fan, be funding and trying to get me all of the support with breath work and healing coaches and therapy. Why would I think that's wrong? Why would I think it's fake? There was no reason for me to think that it was fake until things started to happen and I started to add things up and shit was happening on my phones. You know what I'm saying? So the long story short is that fake therapist that they hired in Puerto Rico. And the only reason why I spoke to a therapist in Puerto Rico is because, one, I was experiencing a high level of trauma, and all of the sessions that they was giving me didn't seem to be working, but I didn't understand at the time that they were keeping me in a state of trauma. And it was also COVID-19, so a lot of people was having therapy over the phone. And I'm telling you, this therapist in Puerto Rico, I had one conversation with her. One. And the idea that one conversation that I had on her was on it behind these demonic accounts. And they had stories, creating stories of my life and posts of my life. You understand what I'm saying? And when I found this cult, I had spoke about it and exposed them. I exposed them. I had exposed ICE. You understand what I'm saying? ICE, the chick who wanted to be an expiring tarot reader, who me and her were prison friends. You know, when I came out here, I helped her to adjust in reentry, put her on to different programs and different things to get her stabilized. I've done a lot more than that, but I'm not going to get into all of that. She has no reason to do what she's done to me, and I understood when I spoke to people who I was incarcerated with to help me to understand the logic behind what these women have done, that I'm fighting for us. So yeah, I understand a lot more now, but all I'm saying is it was confusing at the time. And so when I talk to my other formerly incarcerated women that know me and that know them, they told me these bitches was upstate worshiping the devil and doing all that satanic fucking rituals and shit. And I was like, what? That's all I needed to hear. Because that's all that's going to make sense. They don't have a reason to go against me. No reason. None. I've done nothing to none of them. And the shit that I talk about is shit that they don't have the guts or the heart to talk about. So they, right there, you should be loving on me. But of course, that's not the way that it works. And I'm learning. I'm still learning. And that's cool. We all learning. You understand what I'm saying? But I'm here to tell y'all that I'm in a dangerous situation. These people have been stalking me, breaking into my vehicle, putting things on my apartment door, writing these demonic codes on my YouTube, intimidating me by showing me that they have surveilled, monitored, hacked my life. They have hacked my accounts. They have hacked everything. And the idea that when I was fired from the job, before they fired me, they were talking about my beneficiaries. My sister was one of my beneficiaries. So if there was some harm that had taken place during the Human Resource Department to where she tried to initiate me into a satanic cult training that I figured out and even only had half a knowledge of, that was actually, because no way in my mind did I want to believe that was really what it was, but the evidence was in front of me, still shut that part of my brain down to say, something went wrong somewhere else with somebody else. It wasn't her. It wasn't until I started going through this 6 months of this wellness team that she's hired for me that I realized that, oh, these motherfuckers is not here to help me. And I could get into all of that, but that's a whole nother something. But the idea, it was mainly that therapist from Puerto Rico. When I demanded that therapist's name, because I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just trying to get healed, that I don't realize, nigga, you got to get names, you got to get information, you got to sign releases, nothing, none of that happened. And once I demanded to know that name, that's when they wanted to fire me. Okay, because I had exposed this. This is well documented. My sister was CC'd on these emails. My sister was my beneficiary. And my sister died on the same date of my arrest, June 26th. The same date that the human resource director during my time of trauma, when she would pump me for questions and ask me a series of questions, making me think that she was trying to help me heal, had asked me if that date of my arrest, June 26th, kicked up anything for me. And I said it didn't. And she told me that she found that to be not untrue, but almost like highly unlikely. And I told her it didn't, because it didn't. I don't do dates. You understand what I'm saying? Birthday come around, it's just another day. New Year's come around, Christmas, I'll celebrate for sure. I'll turn up, all that. But in reality of doing 11 years, you come across these dates don't mean nothing no more. You understand what I'm saying? But the idea that she asked the question, and the idea that when she asked the question, it was like, when I told you it didn't bother me, you're telling me that it does bother me. And for y'all to kill my sister on the date of my arrest after asking me that question, it alarmed me from day one. Not only that, all the things that they've been doing to me up until the date that my sister, like stalking me, sending me digital death threats to my phone, to my email, to my Instagrams. You understand what I'm saying? And follow me around, putting shit on my door, putting shit on my car, taking pictures of me. You understand what I'm saying? All this, just 3 days before my sister passed, I'm on my 17th 911 call. I had a half an hour conversation with the cops because they sit here trying to convince me that these are not crimes. This is civil. Oh, really? So people could put shit on your door. They could put demonic codes and target signs on you and put that on your door after harassing you, and that's not a crime? Because when I spoke to the district attorney 3 months ago, I didn't know half of what I knew now. And she said it was a crime. So tell me, how are y'all telling me it's not a crime, it's civil? It's outstanding. You want to know what else is more outstanding? What else is more outstanding is they've been deleting a lot of evidence. A lot of evidence that they think is not going to be resurfaced. This electronic digital stuff that never disappears. This is why I need $75,000 asking for funding. I don't know. People see $75,000. You think I'm going to get rich off of that? Yo, that was my salary. You understand what I'm saying? Borealis started me off at $65,000. Since I've been home, all I did was have good salaries because I pursued my education. Pursuing my education, the intentions of me pursuing my education, not that I buy into that shit, is because I understand that once I have this piece of paper, they can't talk about my felony no more. Don't ask me nothing about that felony. Ask me about the last thing I did, this four-year degree, right? So that was my goal. That was my mission, and I accomplished it, all right? But the idea that I started off at $65,000 at Borealis. In the 2 years that I was working there, I was making $73.5. I got nothing but pay increases. I helped to build that fund. I am the founder of the Spark Justice Fund. You understand what I'm saying? I helped to build these funds. They needed me with my experience, and I was happy to. And I hope it continues to progress. But the trust and the lack of trust of what they've done, it's not just that they've done this. They fired all of these people that was a part of the satanic cult. Yes, they did fire them. You fired them. But you fired me, the reporter of these crimes. You understand? And that's fine, because since they fired me, man, I haven't been more happy. I began to heal. And like I said, this is a longer story. But the way that they have attacked me after I've been fired because I didn't accept their $20,000 of hush money, right? They didn't just fire me. It wasn't like just, okay, you're fired because you've done something wrong. No, it's we fired you because we understand that we've done something wrong. And if any one of our fucking funders find out, we won't be able to get funding. That's not my problem. Why y'all gonna do that shit to me? We're talking about having therapy sessions with the devil. And then we're talking about finding your therapy sessions online because the minute that you try to talk about them, they want to intimidate you and show you just how much about your life that they motherfucking know. Just how much of your fears and your insecurities that they know. So that was a whole nother psychological thing that I went through. You understand what I'm saying? There has to be answers for my sister's death. You can't have nobody that just go to sleep and wakes up dead. Or rather, don't wake up. And when an autopsy is done, there's healthy organs, right? And there's no cause of death. They're like, in other words, their whole entire body was examined inside and out, and there's nothing to say why they died. Please donate $5. If you have more than $5, donate $10. If you have more than $10, donate $20. You got more than $20, put your money where your mouth is. We need to find out what exactly occurred with me. We need to find out what exactly is going on in philanthropy. What exactly are they hiding? And we need to expose these demonic, satanic cults. Y'all do what the fuck y'all want. I don't care who you worship, who you do. I don't care nothing about none of that. Stay the fuck away from me. You understand what I'm saying? I ain't signed up for none of this motherfucking shit, so I don't owe y'all motherfucking shit. You understand what I'm saying? There will be answers for my sister's death. None of these police officers from this precinct will file a report. But then if I go to another precinct and talk to other police officers, of course, they're saying, what? This is aggravated harassment. What? This is this. And as soon as I would come to get the evidence, they're monitoring everything I'm doing online. So that they would start up doing stuff to me and my vehicle. And then so it puts me into this heightened state. And I was getting thrown off. You understand what I'm saying? Like, imagine that after I get fired from this job, you understand what I'm saying, from Borealis, that I had $7,000 into my retirement fund. You understand what I'm saying? And just 6 months later, I had $3,000 more than that. $9,000. You understand what I'm saying? And I had to take the little bit of savings that I had, which was $3,000 at the time, take my $3,000 and then pull out my $9,000 of savings from my retirement fund for what? To pay for a private investigator. I've given $12,500 to a private investigator to investigate what's happening to me. So I can prove that there's a crime happening to me after a crime already happened to me. And do you know, all the death threats that were being sent to me, all the attempted assassinations that was investigated, it's not coming back to no one single person. Guess who it's coming back to? Big corporation. I am up against millionaires, billionaires, and machines. They have their machines tracking me. They have their machines tracking my hashtags. Google is tracking me. Instagram is tracking me. The Ford Foundation is tracking me. Bard Prison Initiative is tracking me. Borealis Philanthropy is still tracking me. And I don't want to say if it's not them, because clearly they've not only fired me, they've isolated me. They have shoved me into a deeper, darker state of fear at that time. You don't mess with people's minds while they're traumatizing it. They're vulnerable like that, and then provide them with fake therapy, and then the therapy sessions that they have and is not healing them because they're talking to the devils. People that just use this against me, use wickedness, put stuff on me, man. I've been going through a lot of stuff, and I need this investigated, man. I need y'all to help me reach out to my elected officials. These people are still sending me death threats when I'm still talking about this stuff, man. You understand what I'm saying? All the stuff that they telling me that they want to do to me. You understand what I'm saying? They've already been doing stuff to me. You understand what I'm saying? They're playing a dangerous game, a very dangerous game. But I've done nothing wrong, so the Lord has to get them. Because if the Lord doesn't get them, it's not going to be a good situation for nobody. So I'm doing all the things that I need to do, still doing things the right way. That's not good. Y'all need to help me get to my elected officials, because it's only a matter that somebody can take. I've reached out to Mayor, okay? I haven't reached out to Cuomo yet, and I have to get back to Letitia James, all right? If you know anybody who also knows of a lawyer, that works with this stuff, please. Because I've been trying to reach out with help for a lot of attorneys. A lot of attorneys, they're more focused on the wrongful termination. They said that's easy as 1, 2, 3. They just want the fast money. I don't care about that money. I care about getting, I'm not saying I don't care about it. It's owed to me. You understand? They wrongfully terminated me. You know, so I lost out on a lot. I lost out on my healthcare benefits. I lost out on my finances. You understand what I'm saying? They done cut me off for unemployment 2 weeks after my sister died. So 2 weeks after my sister died, they cut me off for unemployment. I tried to get it back. They denied me. It's not that they denied me. I don't even know what happened. It's like they did it over and it never came in. So I don't have no money. I'm like flat broke, about to lose literally everything. I'm about to lose my housing too. You understand what I'm saying? Because they burglarized my housing when I first tried to call the cops on them and tell them that this girl Ice had infiltrated my movement because she's dumb. She gets high, she gets drunk, she starts saying shit. She's sitting here in my messenger telling me all this shit, and I'm like, what? You understand what I'm saying? I didn't even know she was against me at the time. And by the time I tried to let everybody in the power leadership movement know that we've been infiltrated, man, they hacked my account. So I had to tell it. You understand what I'm saying? I never wanted to go to pigs on these people, but now they playing about the wrong things, and I'm seeing that there's danger. When you got ICE infiltrating my movement, you got Donna doing what she did, infiltrating my movement, vouching for these accounts, and then all of the attacks and what the accounts were saying to me. You understand what I'm saying? It let me know that, holy fucking shit. What is this about? You understand what I'm saying? What is it about? Is it the grievances? Is it the cult? Is it my crime? Like, what the fuck do you motherfuckers want from me? You understand what I'm saying? They not gonna stop, so I'm not gonna stop. As long as they don't stop, I don't stop. But this shit has to stop. And like I said, I need 2 things. I need donations. I need donations, please, please, please. If you don't have it, you don't have to have it. $5 go a long way. If 75,000 people donate to me $1, I met my goal. You understand what I'm saying? So $5 will go a long way. You understand what I'm saying? And if, like I said, some people have it, some people have more, please, spare it. The second thing is that I need y'all to help me to get help. Whether that's legal help, whether that's helping to share my posts to the elected officials and tag them as well. You know what I'm saying? You could also comment on my page and re-tag them and re-mention them. You understand what I'm saying? Because this is a dangerous situation. And the idea that... All right, I'm going to stop it there. I done talked enough.